Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Frame.io Live. My name is Shawn McDaniel, and we have such an exciting show for you today. We're still letting some folks kind of join into the room, but I do want to say hello to everyone that's already in the room and show us some love. Tell us where you're coming in from. This is a great opportunity to locate that Q&A box on your either left-hand or right-hand side of the screen, depending on which platform you are looking at. Oh, look, I got a little thumbs up. Looks like I updated to the new platform. Look at that. I think I could do hearts too. I don't know if anybody could see that. But anyway, oh, I did. Did that pop up for you? Yeah, that's amazing. All right. Anyway, that's a cool feature I didn't know existed until I just put my thumbs up. So let everyone, yeah. Anyway, please put in where you're coming in from. I am broadcasting live from Hollywood, California, right in Los Angeles. It's been a beautiful sunny day the last couple of days, a little cold. And we've had some crazy rain. So if you are in the LA area, let us know if you survived the rain. It has been just insane out here these last few, this last week. It's been pretty bad. But yeah, hopefully it's sunny and shiny wherever you're coming in from. And again, welcome. But let's take a look. Let's hop in the comments here. We've got some Mexico. We've got Austin. We've got New Jersey. What's up? We've got Charles from LA. Welcome, welcome. WV, what is WV? Sally Dimon from WV. What is that? Let me know what that is. I want to make sure I get the right name on there. But we got another Los Angeles. We've got Utah. And we've got a heck yeah from Alyssa. I love it. San Francisco, Vancouver. All right, David, I'm sorry it's snowing where you're at, but that's okay. You know, hopefully it'll go away soon. Summer's coming, right? Right around the corner. The time's just flying by. We've got India. We've got Ukraine. Hello. Welcome. We've got Colorado. We've got West Virginia. We've got Vancouver. A lot of folks in there. I love it. NYC. We've got another India in the group. Amazing. It's so nice to see so many people coming in from all over the world in one place where we can kind of unite and have a conversation about some really amazing things. And we're really excited for our show this morning. And again, we're really happy that you're all here to join. So now you've all kind of located that Q&A box. That's a great place to drop in your questions as we go along because we got two incredible films with their filmmakers joining us today. We've got FRIDA and Penelope. I'm going to introduce them here shortly. But yeah, drop in your questions. We do like to save a little time at the end for some Q&A and open up the floor to everyone to ask questions because, you know, these films are truly inspiring and I'm really excited to get into the conversation with them. But yeah, so keep those shout outs coming in. And if you are a regular Frame.io Live watcher, throw in the comments what you want to see more sessions about. We're trying to do more sessions where we're talking with filmmakers and editors and folks in the industry where we can provide a source of information and, learning opportunities for everyone in the audience to kind of take advantage of. So let us know if there's some topics you want to hear about. But let's jump back over to Sundance. So there is no easy road to the Sundance Film Festival. Whether you're shooting in desolate locations or digitizing unseen film footage from decades past, or if you're working with multiple collaborators throughout the painstaking process of production. And, you know, honestly, post is a labor of love. And independent filmmaking might seem like a solo effort, but it really takes a village, getting everyone to share the same vision. Now, before we bring out our guests, let's take a look at the excitement that Sundance brings to not only to the viewers of these films, but to the filmmakers as well. We can also get a sense of how collaboration with your creative team is key to making a film come to life. Let's take a look.
Making a film is like building an airplane as it takes off. You have to have it completed by the time you land. And you really need so many people to build that plane with you. You can't do it on your own.
As a filmmaker, having a film at Sundance means the film is a part of history. This is the big upload button. It's a dream come true.
Claiming your voice as a filmmaker, I think it makes it a lot easier when things feel accessible to you.
Premiere just feels really tangible. If an idea comes, I can just do it without thinking about it. It feels like putting on a glove at this point.
I love Premiere. It's how I've edited all the features that I've edited. It just makes sense the way it's laid out.
Premiere allows me to move scenes and feelings and ideas around without feeling like the software is even present.
Some of the features that are great in Premiere Pro is the integration of sound design software and also any VFX you want to use.
We had so many transcripts. We had so many interviews. We used speech to text for transcriptions because it was really fast. Speech to text was like the best way to do it.
This key opens everything. Frame.io was very important for us. It's the easiest way to communicate frame by frame. It's the only way we got the film done in time to be at the Sundance Film Festival.
The relationship between Frame and Premiere is so integral because of how much we're handing off between people all the time.
We edited this film in 6 different locations.
Collaboration in general, this is filmmaking. You have to get along with the people that you work with to bring the art or the message that you have to the screen.
There is no solo filmmaker. Storytelling is the most important thing, and it's the collaboration. It's looking around and seeing all the faces. It's the most fulfilling parts of the process.
I always love watching that video because it just reminds you of just how many different filmmakers go to this type of festival, and they rely on tools to allow them to get that done. And today we're going to break that down. So we are so excited to be joined by these amazing filmmakers today. We are joined by, drum roll please, director and editor Carla Gutierrez of FRIDA, and editor Celia Beasley, and the first assistant editor Kenzie Woodrow of Penelope. We are going to learn from them how they relied on Frame.io. How we relied on Frame.io and Adobe Creative Cloud to streamline their process from camera to capture through post-production. We'll dive into how their cloud-based workflow helped them collaborate and communicate in real time from remote locations. To arrive at the Sundance Film Festival, I also want to inspire users watching today to continue pursuing your dream of telling a great story. And being at the festival this year, I was really able to feel the energy of the people wanting to see a truly amazing story and hear from the people that made it happen. Again, I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and please drop in any questions you may have, because again, I want to do some Q&A towards the end of our session. Let's go ahead and start our discussion. So Carla, I'd love to start with you. First off, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's so great to be here.
Love it. So I recently watched FRIDA, and I have to say, not only is the film stunningly beautiful, but I really feel like it's a window into FRIDA's life that we as an audience have not been exposed to before. It's such an intimate portrayal, and I was just really in awe of how you shared FRIDA's story through various archival footage, as well as her amazing artwork. So this leads me to my first question is, can you tell us a little bit about what this film is about and what makes this story so unique to other interpretations of FRIDA's story?
Yes, so FRIDA is about iconic artist Frida Kahlo, who, most of us know and know of her art. She was a Mexican painter that was alive in the Mexico of the 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s. And her painting was incredibly intimate and raw. And that's really what we wanted to capture with this film. It's, even more than just having an insight into her life, was to have an insight into her heart and into her dreams and into her thoughts. So our film tells her story, but from the perspective of Frida Kahlo herself. So we use her own words to be able to, navigate through her life. And what we really wanted to do was to make that connection between her life experiences and how that resulted, like that originated the painting and the amazing, raw art that she made. So that's our film.
So where did you start with her story? What's the origin of this film for you?
For me, it started decades ago. As many people, I got to know her. The first painting that I saw of her was when I was in college, and it was actually a self-portrait of her full body, standing between the United States and Mexico. And I was a recent immigrant then, and I just really saw my experience as an immigrant really reflected in her painting, like the feelings of being in this new world that wasn't totally welcoming sometimes, and also like yearning for home. So I got obsessed with her, like many do, and I looked at all her art, and I learned about her life, and I read as many books as I could about her. I read her diary. So that was really kind of like the initial, the initial aspects of this story for me. And then as I matured as a woman and I continued to be connected with her art on an emotional level, I went back to her story and I realized that there were a lot of writings where she expressed her emotions throughout her life. And I thought that with my experience, I come from a documentary editing background. I've been doing that for a long time. So that experience made me feel really confident that I could, bring all these writings from a lot of different letters, from her diary, from a couple of essays and some print interviews. There's actually no recording of her voice in existence, but I felt that I could really, bring all those elements together and like bring her voice to life. And that's how, we started this project, developing the idea.
So that was a very, very interesting part of the story, was the voiceover. And I do want to ask some questions on that, but you did mention that you've, read her diary, her letter, and different essays that she's written. How did you filter through all of those? What key things did you find, or how did you kind of go through all of that and go, here's the through line that I want to tell as a director? Yeah, I'd love to hear that process a little.
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, it wasn't very obvious at the beginning because obviously, what we're exposed to as regular, people is books written about her. So I was able to kind of like see what was available of her voice. But then my production really started like a very involved research process where we collected all her writings, and I believe that actually we have the most comprehensive database of all her writings, and then we just and then we started reading. What was really interesting is that like we don't have her really telling us what happened in her life. We have her telling us how she felt when those things were happening. So I really wanted to make sure that we lean into that. So the film is not really a list of the details of what happened in her life, but it's really like hearing her emotion as she's kind of like writing through all these things that happened to also regular women. So that's kind of how we went about it. At the beginning, we actually thought that we were going to have to lean on other people's voices. We always knew that we only wanted to use her voice and the voice of people that knew her and that were present in her life. So first person accounts. But then we realized more and more that if we really focused on her emotions and her thoughts, she could really take over the story. So that's, in a way, we ended up allowing FRIDA to guide us through the filmmaking process.
So then that leads me to my question about the voiceover talent. Before I actually get into my question, you were actually able to share a clip with us. So I'd love to play that now. So folks in the audience get a sense of a little bit of her voice and then how her artwork comes into play. So I want to take a moment and play that clip here.
En mi vida no he pintado sino la expresión honrada de mí misma. Para decir lo que no podía de otra forma. Pinto porque lo necesito.
Now, it is an extremely short clip, and by reason, because you definitely want to see the entire film in its entirety. But I do want to get on the director's hat really quick, Carla. How did you direct your voiceover talent? There were so many visceral moments where she was very passionate, and you can almost feel FRIDA through the voiceover talent. So how did you get that performance? And I know that you've did a lot of research to kind of, talk with people that knew her, but how did you direct the voiceover talent in this?
So just to explain the directing, I have to do the setup of like how we put the film together before we had the voice talent.
Of course.
We had an opportunity to really work with an amazing actress called Fernanda Echeverria from Mexico. As you can see in the very short clip, is that our film is a combination. I mean, we're bringing the world that surrounded Frida alive through archival, and then we immerse ourselves into her art. And that's a way for us to kind of like get deeper into her heart and her thoughts, right? But we had to put that together before we did the final recording with great talent. And I actually had to voice Frida for a long time as we were, because, think about it, like so many documents of her writing, and we were taking like one little piece from here, another piece from another place.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said at the beginning, really post is a labor of love. And for this film specifically, like all of it was a labor of everything in this film. Like the film really came together in post. It found its spirit and its voice in post. So I had to do the recordings just to be able to edit it. And I was told I did not suck, which helped us quite a bit, because we could, again, lean on Frida's emotional, journey. But I was very, very glad when we were towards the end of the process and I could get rid of my voice and then bring Fernanda's beautiful voice. And we did casting. We would not look at the actresses that, audition for us, their face, but we really wanted to be able to just listen to the performance, but also to listen to the voice. We actually found in our archival documents descriptions of Frida's voice. So we had a sense of like how other people had described her. She was a huge smoker, so she had a bit of a raspy voice. But we were looking for this maturity and passion of a woman without losing this curiosity and like sense of freshness in terms of like, how she interacted with the world. And Fernanda was that in the first, in the audition that she gave us, like that's what she really captured. And when I had a chance to direct her, the concept was, let this be kind of like an interview or really a friend talking to Frida. Like think of Frida at the very end of her life in bed, not being able to move, and a friend comes to visit her, and then Frida tells her her secrets. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like the direction that we use in the voiceover. And I made the decision not to stay outside of the recording booth, but actually to be there, right there with Fernanda. So I was like very, very close to her. And we did, different takes of, just, her closing her eyes and doing the reading, but also looking at me as if she was actually telling the story to somebody. And, that combination of attempts, like just gave us the magic that Fernanda was able to capture.
Amazing. Well, you definitely captured it. I was fully engulfed. Now let's jump over to the editing process. So the film has a mix of obviously Frida's artwork and archival footage, but also, time period footage. How did you fill in the gaps to kind of tell the story? When did you choose source footage from the time period, and when was it appropriate to move to Frida's imagery or artwork?
It was a complex process. I just want to say, wearing the two hats, like being a director and an editor, again, I've had experience editing many documentaries before, but I wanted to make sure that I was very supported in the process. So we had a wonderful supervising editor, David Teague. So I really worked through the story very closely with him and the themes of the film. And from the very beginning, our approach was, how do we present the world that created Frida, the world around her, in a way that always felt that we were looking at it through her eyes, because we're hearing her voiceover. But then, how do we interact visually with that world? And that's something that I've always, tried to do when I approach archival footage is, how do you make the archival feel so that you really are kind of walking hand, and holding the hand of the protagonist. So you're really being able to interact with that world through her eyes. And that always makes the archival a lot more present, like if it was happening right now.
Yeah.
And then the art, like from the very beginning, we felt that the art was, again, kind of like a window into her internal world. And that's how we treated it. And that was a big decision that we made from the very beginning, to animate it so that we would actually have the audience kind of swim in her emotions and be able to highlight the aspects of her paintings that we wanted the audience to really feel strongly. So that's kind of like how we navigated going from archival into the art. And it was usually a build-up. Like, I hope people here have the opportunity to watch it on Amazon Prime soon, but hopefully you feel that, like, you're kind of like getting closer to this emotional build up. And when you're really listening to her, like, exploding desire or exploding pain, like, you're just jumping into her paintings and really feeling that. So yeah, I'm excited for people to be able to watch it.
Same here. They need to watch it. One of the coolest things about the artwork of FRIDA is you were able to kind of animate it and almost make it appear as if it was happening. As she was kind of painting it, putting it together. What was that process of animating her artwork? What tools did you use? Was it something you outsourced? Did you have an in-house team that you kind of work with? How did you make that artwork come to life?
As I just said, it was a concept that we had from the very beginning. And the approach, we thought about from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We brought in a team from Mexico. We actually found our animation artists through Instagram. We were talking to a few companies in Mexico, but it was Instagram that really introduced us to the amazing team that was led by Renata Galindo and Sofia Cáceres. And it was, a group of mostly female animators in Mexico that were collaborating with us, in the distance, but they got involved in the brainstorming process of it. And we always, again, talked about, like, well, what is FRIDA feeling right now? And that's going to dictate what parts of the paintings we're going to focus on, we're going to concentrate on. We never add any external elements to FRIDA's art. What we're doing is creating movement so that we can really kind of like walk through the art and have the audience really pay attention to the things that I want them to pay attention to, which have emotional weight at that point. So yeah, and they work, we're a big, happy Adobe family. They work in After Effects. And then they will share the animation drafts and the animatics with us over Frame. So yeah, that's how it worked.
Amazing. Well, leading into the Frame question, how, besides just passing footage back and forth, how did you use Frame for your post-production? And it sounds like a lot of the animated pieces were passed back and forth, but yeah, what's your extensive use of Frame on this project?
So we use it from the very beginning. It's a very archival heavy film, and we actually did the first pass of management of all the media management of all the archival that we were collecting. We did it on Frame because we had somebody in Mexico who was collecting, gathering all the archival in Mexico. We had sources internationally here in the States, and we use the capacity that Frame has to be able to like add everything and organize everything. And then we brought all that media into Premiere. So it was from the very beginning, but then we had a very, not big team, but like our core team was really in a lot of different places. We had a composer working in LA. We had, different teams in Mexico at different times. Animation team was there. Our archival producer was there, and then we were doing the post in New York City. So it was just like essential for us to be able to share, even the thinking that we were doing, the creative thinking that we were doing, and the things that we were trying really quickly through Frame. So that's how we, communicated really visually and creatively.
Well, Carla, I really appreciate you sharing your vision with us, and I'm so happy we got to have a chance to chat. I do want to save some time for Q&A, so I'm hoping you'll be able to stick around. I do want to jump over to Penelope, but Carla, thank you so much. But yeah, let's jump over to Penelope, which is the next film, or actually TV series. We're going to get that clarification here shortly, for something that they've done in Sundance, which I don't think they've really done before. But just want to remind you, we do have a Q&A box, so please throw in your questions in there. We do want to have some time to have those asked towards the end of our session. So I am so excited to have this next project, Penelope. So we've got Celia and Kenzie. We'll have to bring them out here. Hello, Celia. Hello, Kenzie. How are you?
Hi.
Hi.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. So we have both the editor and the first assistant editor for Penelope. So this is kind of unusual for Sundance to screen TV shows. Is that kind of, yeah, give me the round table on how this kind of works with Sundance and how this plays in with Penelope.
I actually don't know that. I don't know how Sundance has decided to do that. So, yeah, I mean, it was really amazing to have the opportunity to show it there. And actually, as another team member from our post team pointed out to me, he said, this is probably the only time you'll be able to see it on the big screen, because otherwise it's intended for the small screen. So that was a good point. And it was really amazing to be able to see it in its, in its full grand manifestation at the Library Theater at Sundance.
So can you tell us a little bit about what this show is about? So we know it's a series, but what exactly is Penelope?
So Penelope is, it's a scripted fiction series, and it's about a 16-year-old girl who is sort of, by all external signs, looks sort of like your sort of typical normal teenager, but there's something sort of that doesn't quite, she feels a little bit out of place, and just sort of decides to leave society as we know it and run off into the wilderness to live in a sort of survival mode.
So this is a Mark Duplass, kind of a story, and then it was directed by Mel Eslin. Am I saying that correctly? Mm-hmm. Mel Eslin. So how did I know Mel's worked with the Duplass brothers company, and of course Mark wrote it. So how did Penelope come to be for you both? How did it drop into your laps?
Yeah, so Mel's actually the principal of Duplass and has been for a long time. So she's produced, I mean, I don't even know how many, maybe even hundreds of projects for Duplass, and has been a collaborator with Mark since, I think it was like 2010 or something. So it's been a really long time. There she is. Yeah, they really have kind of a mind meld thing going on. And yeah, I mean, they developed Penelope during the pandemic. The story I heard was that Mark was watching a lot of shows, sort of survival shows with both his teenage daughters and his parents. And they found themselves 3 generations just like riveted watching these people, trying to make a fire as though it was like, the finale of Game of Thrones or something. And so kind of wrapping into how we were all spending time during the pandemic and, facing our own mortality and our role in the world and the universe and how our species is interacting with the planet and all those things. A lot of those things sort of came out, and Mel has always been a really big, love the outdoors and really connected with the outdoors, and sort of has a fantasy of throwing her phone in the garbage and running off into the wilderness. And so they just were really excited to sort of explore that through the lens of Penelope. And for me, I've worked with on several Duplass projects at this point. I've known Mel for about 15 years because she also came up through the Seattle indie film world. Like me, we're very overlapped on a lot of projects. She produced Outside In, that was directed by Lynn Shelton, and also starred Jay Duplass. So we had a lot of connections for a long time, but never as in this role as editor director. So when she contacted me about working on this, of course I said, of course, yes, I want to work on anything you're involved in. Everything is really cool. And when she told me about the premise of the project, I just thought it was really wonderful, and just so much in the spirit of a Duplass project, where they just said, let's try this thing. It's really cool. It's very unique. It doesn't look like anything that's on TV, and we're just going to go for it.
That's amazing. Kenzie, how did you get looped into this project as well?
So I've been working with Duplass for a couple of years now. I actually started on Biosphere with them a few years back, and I've kind of become a popular assistant for them, anything Premiere related. So Premiere, Frame.io, we used Camera to Cloud on Biosphere too, which I can talk about a little bit later.
Sure.
So I think they just wanted to loop me in because I was familiar with the workflow from previous projects.
And Mark was pushing for her. He was like, you have to have Kenzie. She's amazing.
Well, we talked a lot about this being outdoors. And, you know, after watching the, I keep wanting to call it a film, but I know it's a TV series. But after I watched the project, curiosity seems to be a really big theme in this show. And just kind of, you know, like you said, she throws her phone away and just kind of goes out into the wilderness. So I want to throw up kind of a wild card question. What can both of you take away from your personal relationship with nature and put it into this project? I'd love to hear from you both on that perspective.
Yeah, I also love the outdoors, and I'm based in Seattle, and so we have lots of, you know, as you will see in the show, just absolute amazing ecosystems here, and just so many beautiful places. What I love about being in the wilderness and backpacking in particular, which is like the closest thing that I do that Penelope does, is just the simplicity of it. I mean, you're really pared down to just the essentials. You know, you can't bring a bunch of superfluous stuff. You know, when it's time to make dinner, you just have to make, that's all you're doing. You're not doing that and a million other things. And obviously you don't have cell service, and so you're not distracted in that way. And I have a similar experience, similar in theme, in that about 5 years ago, my husband and I took our kids out of school and we left and we traveled around the world for a year, which is different than going and living in the wilderness. But in that same idea of just really kind of focusing on being in the moment and what's essential and what's present. And what I love about Penelope is that she is not an experienced outdoors person. She didn't, you know, maybe she went camping a few times, but she certainly isn't like an experienced backpacker or didn't take any wilderness survival courses. So she's really doing it all on the fly, but she's really, you can feel that she's sensing the desire to really not just connect with nature, but also connect with something deep inside of her, of really pulling on her own internal resources, and how do you make it work when you're really on your own and all you have is what you have with you and your brain, and trying to figure out things, and seeing her do that was really, really cool.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback off of that. Like, very inspiring every day. Like, I don't know if I can get secondhand nature benefits from watching footage on my computer of it, but that's how it felt for Penelope at times. I live in LA now, but I grew up in a rural farm town in New Hampshire. So to get into nature and for this to be a topic that a lot of my work actually in the past has been about, just coincidentally, I'm very fascinated by the relationship of urban and nature, and it does a lot to our brains. So I hope when people see this show, it will make them want to go take a hike or do something to really decompress.
Yeah. So in the editing process, how hands-on, we're going to put on the editor and assistant editor hat now. How hands-on were Mel and Mark in the editing process? What was the dynamic like?
So most of the time of the edit I was working remotely with Mel and Kenzie and the other rest of the post team. So I was based in Seattle and they were in LA, and I started working on it during the shoot. So for that whole period of time, I was working in parallel. And then we were working remotely. And so I was sending cuts back and forth through Frame.io and getting notes from Mel. And, you know, again, I've known her for so long, and we really know each other's sensibilities. So that really just kind of created a shorthand from that perspective. And then for the last 3 weeks of the edit, I came down to LA to work in person, because some things, you know, you just really kind of have to hash out in person. Yeah. And so those were like every single day, the whole day, we would sit down together with Kenzie too in the room, and we would just work through things from start to finish. She and Mark are really, you know, they're constantly in communication. So Mark wasn't in the office, but she would pop out of the room and, you know, have a talk with him and come back and sort of relay his thoughts and notes and work that way. So it was both, she was both very hands off in the beginning, and then hands-on, but in the best way, in the sense that I always say that what I need from a director to be able to work well is a clear vision of what they have in their mind, and then the trust from them to execute it with all of the skills and ideas and little tricks and my creativity to do that. And that's really what I got from both of them, was just, they were like, go for it, try stuff. And some of the stuff we tried was really like, it was way, way out on a limb, but I knew that it was like a safe place. And I could try stuff and they weren't going to be like, that's terrible, you're fired. It was like, that's interesting. And maybe that doesn't work, but maybe open some other things. And so yeah, it was really a really wonderful collaboration.
Amazing. So as an editor for an indie project like this, what input did you have in terms of story as they were shooting? Were there any notable scenes that you can recall that, because a lot of this is camera to cloud, and we're going to get into that in a moment, but like as they were shooting, what input were you able to kind of add to the story, as it was kind of coming together?
So not much, actually. I don't, in general, I have only ever worked on indie stuff. I'm very much in this little indie bubble. And my approach when I'm working on a film is like, my job is not to tell them what to shoot. It's to let them do their thing. And my job is to make it work with whatever they shoot. That's my responsibility. So, at times a director will call me and say, gosh, we're losing this location tomorrow. Can you just make sure that we have what we need for the scene? Or, something, whatever happened, it wasn't quite panning out the way they needed it. And so they just want to make sure that, that we have everything that we need. And so I'll kind of jump ahead and make a quick edit of that. But otherwise, I'm letting them do their thing and they're letting me do my thing. What I do like to do whenever it's geographically possible is I do like to go to set at the very beginning, like basically like, on the first or second day, like right when I'm still kind of waiting for stuff to be coming to me. And I do that for two reasons. One reason is that it's good for me to remember all of the people that are involved in making this project, because I have such a small view of who's involved. And I always think of Lynn Shelton, who I worked with on, with Outside In. And she used to be an editor, and she said, your job is to make everybody's work look good and make everybody proud to have been part of this. And so I go there and I want to see like all the PAs and the crafties and the gaffers and the, the transpo people and all of the crew, and just to have eyeballs on them and think, oh my gosh, these people are out here, especially with Penelope, they're in the wilderness, they're, it's raining, it's cold, they're really like, putting in blood, sweat, and tears. And it's my job to just, hold that and really remember that for when I'm doing my process. And then I leave, because then I really need to be the audience's advocate, and I can only see what's on screen. And so I don't want to be influenced by, oh, this shot took forever to get, or, wow, this was like amazing that this worked or didn't work, or over here, there's actually like a house and we're trying to frame out of it. I can only see what's on screen. So it's really important to keep that neutrality. So, during the shoot, I actually have very little contact with the director. Unless, again, it's sort of for some particular troubleshooting thing. But yeah, we just kind of let each other do our thing.
Amazing. So Kenzie, I'd love to ask, how did you work in tandem with Celia? How did you, set up your projects in Premiere? Is there any special tools or things that you were able to, implement or work with to allow you guys to work a little easier together?
Yeah, well, it was pretty incredible that with Premiere Productions paired with a LucidLink server that actually had our production and our footage on it, the assistants were able to be in Los Angeles and support Celia in Seattle. And it was pretty seamless. I mean, I hadn't worked so remotely before on productions, and usually someone's like in the next room. So I was pleasantly surprised that I could just put something in a project. We had like an inbox system. So we had one project that was like Celia's inbox, and we would drop things in her inbox, and then she would put it in another folder once she'd watched it. And it just made everything so smooth. And I can't believe that we're able to do something like that. And I really don't think we could do it without productions. That was a game changer for us.
Yeah. So this film, being very remote, it utilized our camera to cloud workflow. And for our audience members who may be not familiar with camera to cloud, but it's basically the fastest and easiest way to get your footage from set to post the minute you finish hitting that record button. And in this instance, you guys were able to use, I think your entire film, you guys did camera to cloud, and correct me if I'm wrong. But how did you use C2C? What was your relationship with camera to cloud for this shoot?
Yeah, so because Penelope was filmed so remote, we had to get a satellite company to bring in like a small server that people would carry around in the woods, and it would give us Wi-Fi for set, but it would also link to our sound and our camera. So like you said, when the record button, when we cut, goes into the cloud and actually was syncing picture and audio. And for me in LA, within like a couple of minutes, maybe an hour at most, I could see synced footage from set, which was pretty incredible. I know on set, they gave all the department heads their own iPad too. And what that helped with is when you're filming in nature, you don't want to like trample over certain, you want to respect the landscape.
Absolutely.
And this was a pretty big crew. So we didn't want people trampling all throughout the woods and everyone having their own iPads. They could be more stationary, keep everything light actually on set, but everyone was still seeing what was being shot. And that was huge for the camera to cloud, especially on set for us.
So what specific features of camera to cloud made it easier to set up projects on kind of the back end? And, what was that relationship like with Premiere as well?
Yeah, so I am a huge fan of the Frame.io extension in Premiere. So everything, once it was synced on camera to cloud, it would pop up on Frame.io, and I could just have that downloading in the background straight into my Premiere bin, which is a great option so that I don't have to constantly be checking on Finder and comparing file sizes to make sure that I downloaded everything. Everything was just so seamless. It would go into Premiere that way. And from there, I could, if the director needed a daily string out, it was already in my project to just crank out for her.
So how was camera to cloud adopted for this project? Who was kind of the one kind of spearheading to make this the official workflow for the show?
Yeah, I think that was a huge push just from Duplass in general. They're always excited to try out new technology and new workflows. And as I mentioned earlier, they tried this workflow initially on Biosphere a few years back. And I think it was such a success, even though that wasn't as remote of a production. When Penelope came up, I know the head of post at Duplass, Alex Regalado, is just so amazing and pushed to have this be for Penelope as well. And there was no resistance really either, because again, with the parameters of being so remote, being in the woods, needing everyone to have eyes on this footage, to have an option where people could get that on their phones or on an iPad, it didn't take much convincing, I don't think.
Amazing. Well, besides camera to cloud, what role did Frame.io play in kind of your creative collaboration? Was it, were you able to share links with other folks? Like, how did Frame kind of play into that? This would be for both of y'all as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was really for the first, I would say 85% of the edit. That's how I would share links with Mel. And so she was able to give notes. I just love the note giving system in Frame, where it's like so specific. It can be down to, really giving a note on a particular frame, because, previous projects, like getting time code notes, you're always trying to sort of translate what exactly, it's like, was it right there? Was it two shots before? So, so having that immediacy was really amazing. And then I could also just respond to the note right there. I could check it off. She could see that I did it, or I can make a note of why it wasn't working, or something else I tried, and Kenzie could chime in. So it was just so nice to have that tracking and have it just be so streamlined. I mean, years and years of doing this with other projects where just all kinds of different note taking systems, and this was by far the most streamlined.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we are getting close on time, but before we actually jump into Q&A, I'd love to bring Carla back out, and I'd love to just kind of throw some questions out to the entire group. Since we are kind of focused on Sundance, I do want to throw out the question to everyone. How was the festival for you?
It was amazing. I mean, it's, Sundance is the most amazing opportunity to have that first connection with audiences, and the festival itself is getting the attention from the industry. So, so you have the access to be reviewed by trade publications, and it's just like this most amazing opportunities to really connect to the people that are going to be watching the film. And that's the first connection you're having. So, and again, the experience of like seeing people finally react to what you've been working in, in our little edit spaces for so long is just incredibly special.
Yeah, definitely. And for me also, just as an editor, I live in a city doesn't have as obviously as big of a market as LA or New York, where, so many people are working in the industry. So to be in a place where I could tell people I'm an editor and they actually knew what that meant and understood the value of that was really gratifying.
Yeah, it was very affirming. Just the whole experience.
So my next question is, like, when you get the call saying that you're going to Sundance, what happens right after that? What events lead up to the festival itself? Is it panic? Is it excitement? Is it like, oh, we got a massive amount of work that we need to do? What happens after you get that call?
I mean, with FRIDA, we were actually on our way to be able to finish the film way before like the premiere. I know for a lot of films, like people are just like rushing to be able to go there with a finished film. So, so it was, it was mostly just, I think getting like, emotionally ready for, again, like putting the film that you've poured your heart into like out and finally getting eyeballs on it and getting people to actually like have an emotional connection, hopefully, with your baby. So yeah, I would echo that. And also just trying to figure out what to wear. It was very hard to figure out the cold and then the indoors, and then you want to look cute but you're wearing boots. I mean, it was like that was really hard. Layers. Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I asked myself, like, is it cool to wear like snow boots in here? Like,
well, as you just showed the clip, I was wearing like a mini skirt and snow boots. So I guess, well, there you go. That was my answer.
Yeah. Well, so for people that might be just getting started and maybe have doubts in their mind is if they should tell their story, what would you say to them? And I'd love to do a roundtable. I'd love to get an answer from each of y'all.
Well, my piece of advice there is also, again, just coming from a really just 100% indie background where I don't have any formal training in film. I didn't go to film school. I kind of just came into this with a lot of naivete in a way that I didn't really know. I wasn't thinking about distribution or about the marketing side of it at all, the industry side. And there's something really lovely about that where all the people I kind of came up around, we all just wanted to make stuff with the resources that we had on hand. And I think that Sundance is really inspiring for that, again, that sort of connectivity and being reconnected to the why, but it can also be a little intimidating because you suddenly there is this whole industry side that can kind of make you think, oh, wait, I don't have it all together. I don't have all the pieces in place. And that can kind of put on the brakes a little bit. And so I would just say to people, and this is very much what the Duplass philosophy is too. It's just make it, just make what you want to make with what you have on hand and don't overthink it. That's, it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to have everything exactly lined up the way you want it. And you just have to go for it. It's a total leap of faith and just jump.
Yeah. I would also say, two things is that always think about learning about your craft and learning about story. Like, how do you, put yourself in situations where you're being mentored or even just watching films. Like, I feel that throughout my career, I was mentored by a lot of people that I never met just because I kept watching their films and studying it. Success doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not something that happens really quickly. Like, to be able to go to Sundance with a film, I've been doing this for a long time. It's, so don't expect that. Work on your craft and work on your talent. And also build those really, strong relationships, connections that with your peers, that they're going to be there for the rest of your career. And those are the people that sometimes are going to hire you. Those are people that are going to support your own, your own journeys, your own projects. And just identifying the people that you really want to collaborate with. And you also have a support system with is really important from the very beginning.
And I'll just add that the filmmaking process is it can be such a personal one. And there can be a lot of self-doubt and like, what am I doing? Is this anything? Like, will anyone even like this? And just being at Sundance just reminded me that all of those struggles are really worth it. And if you can surround yourself with community, I think that really helps in this industry that I wouldn't say it's necessarily cold, but sometimes you just need like a nice little warm hug when you're like, what is this film that I'm working on? And Sundance kind of connected me to a lot of people like that.
Yeah, a hug can solve a lot of problems. So I totally agree with that. Well, lastly, for the question I have for you all is, where can we see your films? When are they going to be out? When can we expect to see them? The beauty of Sundance is it's a place where, independent filmmakers can tell their stories and get it picked up for audiences abroad and far and wide. So yeah, where can we see your projects?
I guess I'll start. We were incredibly lucky to have great partners that really supported the vision of the film from the very beginning. So we're going to be streaming on Amazon Prime on March 14th, which is coming pretty soon. So especially with somebody like FRIDA, who is, a global icon and art lovers everywhere. And she's become a symbol for a feminist symbol, a symbol of, queerness and people with disabilities. Mm-hmm. It's just like amazing for us to be able to reach, a global audience with her story. So March 14th.
On Amazon Prime, right?
On Amazon Prime.
Wonderful. All right. And Penelope?
Penelope, I don't have any news to share because the truth is I'll find out about it on social media like everybody else, because I'm not at all in the distribution part of it. So that's sort of that little bubble that we are in post, as we just kind of, do our thing and then people tell us what's going on. So yeah.
No, all good. I mean, and it's, with Mark Duplass and Mel Eslin involved, we're definitely going to be seeing that very soon. So I encourage folks watching the show now, please check out FRIDA and Penelope. And I think there was only one question that kind of popped through in our chat. So let's hop over to Q&A. So our question that came in is going to be centered around camera to cloud, and it was mostly about data. I know you mentioned, Kenzie, that there was a satellite company that came up. I believe it was First Mile Technologies, but if you're able to kind of talk a little bit more about the kind of data flow and how they kind of dealt with being in such remote locations, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, my experience with it was so remote that all I really know is that First Mile Tech was amazing and handled the satellite for us. And in terms of data, what's nice about this whole workflow is that you don't need to be as integrated. Like as an assistant editor, I didn't have to be there front and center on the workflow. I was just receiving everything because it all worked so smoothly. So I wish I had a better answer on why, or the technology and the data that we used, but I didn't have to touch that as much.
Yeah, and the other question about Starlink, we've got some folks that are on the Camera to Cloud team that might be able to answer that a little better than I. So whoever's on the Camera to Cloud team in the chat, they should be able to respond to you, Charles. But thank you for your question. Well, we are pretty much at the end of our session here. Thank you all so much for joining us. Really, it is incredible to have all of you on and talk about your workflow, talk about your projects, and really just get kind of an in-depth look. So again, thank you all for joining us in today's session. But I do want to make sure I say goodbye to everyone and let you know that if you want to head to the Frame.io live page, you could sign up for ongoing sessions, but please do keep an eye out for our next session where we talk with editor Daniel Garber, who is going to be, who's actually known for editing Some Kind of Heaven and How to Blow Up a Pipeline, which is currently streaming on Hulu, but he's also working on a new show for FX. So make sure you join us for that session because we're going to talk about his editing process as well. We do have weekly Frame.io training sessions, so please check back often, and because we update our schedule regularly, so please visit frame.io/live. Make sure you also follow us on Instagram as well, frame_io. Frame.io and read more about our industry by checking out our blog, which is called Frame.io Insider. That's blog.frame.io. And, you know, in the end, we hope that you were inspired by our filmmakers that joined us in this session today, and that what you take and what you've heard with them today, we hope that will use and empower your next project. Thank you so much again for joining us on Frame.io Live. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you later.